Hello, and welcome to Prime Pulse News USA. Tonight's top story, President Donald Trump has announced that the 2026 G20 summit will be hosted not in Washington, New York, or another world capital, but at his own Trump National Doral golf resort near Miami, Florida. The decision is being praised by some for its convenience and scale, while others are raising sharp ethical concerns, accusing the president of using public office for private gain. Here's our full report. On September 5th, inside the Oval Office, President Trump made it official. The leaders of the world's largest economies will gather at Trump National Doral in 2026. The president described the Miami area resort as, quote, the best location. He cited its proximity to Miami International Airport, its spacious accommodations, and the ability to house each delegation in separate buildings. Trump also insisted that neither he nor his family would financially benefit from the summit, saying, "There's no money in it, it's strictly at cost." Sources: The Washington Post, New York Post. Doral is a sprawling four-star property featuring multiple golf courses, luxury villas, banquet halls, and large event spaces. According to White House officials, the resort can meet the complex security and hospitality demands of a G20 summit, making it a logistically sound choice. Sources: The Washington Post, CBS News, New York Post. This announcement echoes a familiar controversy. Back in 2019, Trump attempted to host the G7 at Doral. That plan collapsed after bipartisan backlash, with critics warning that directing international business to his own resort could violate the Constitution's emoluments clause. By reviving the idea for the G20, Trump has reopened old wounds about whether the presidency is being leveraged for personal business. Sources: The Washington Post, Wikipedia. Supporters argue the resort is a world-class facility capable of handling the summit, but watchdog groups and lawmakers say the optics are undeniable. A taxpayer-funded event benefiting the president's brand. Trump's claim of no profit is met with skepticism, as the resort will inevitably gain international exposure, prestige, and business value. Sources: The Washington Post, Reuters, New York Post. Local officials are welcoming the news. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, who stood beside the president during the announcement, praised the decision, calling it a, quote, tremendous boom for Miami's economy. He argued that hosting world leaders in Florida places the city, quote, on the global map like never before. Sources: New York Post, ABC News. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been tasked with overseeing the event, while National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett will coordinate planning. Interestingly, President Trump himself will skip this year's G20 in South Africa. Instead, Vice President J.D. Vance will represent the United States, further elevating Vance's profile on the global stage. Sources: The Washington Post, CBS News, Reuters. The 2026 G20 will be historic for several reasons. It will be the first U.S.-hosted summit since 2009. It will coincide with America's 250th anniversary, and it will unfold at a property owned by the sitting president. Supporters see it as a proud moment for Miami and the nation. Critics, however, warn it blurs the already fragile line between public duty and private profit. As planning begins, all eyes are on whether Trump's Doral resort will be remembered as a symbol of national prestige or as a lightning rod for controversy. Tonight's top story: President Donald Trump has once again raised the prospect of deploying the National Guard, this time to Portland, Oregon. His remarks, however, were not based on current unrest, but on a misleading television report that combined old footage with recent protests. Here's our full report. Speaking from the Oval Office earlier today, President Trump suggested that Portland could be the next city to see a National Guard deployment. The president described the situation as, quote, like living in hell. He claimed the city was under siege with widespread destruction, but in reality, the most recent demonstrations were small. Just a few dozen people gathered near an ICE facility, far from the chaos of years past. Sources: The Guardian, OPB. The president's perception appears to have been shaped by a Fox News segment that aired Thursday. That broadcast combined footage of a recent small-scale protest with viral video from 2020, when Portland saw massive demonstrations after the killing of George Floyd. The older footage was presented as if it were current. Sources: The Guardian. Believing the situation was ongoing, the president remarked, "I didn't know that was continuing." He vowed, "We'll be able to stop that very easily." He went further, labeling protesters as paid agitators and declaring, "We're going to wipe them out." These comments echoed rhetoric he used during the 2020 protests, despite there being no evidence to support the claims. Sources: The Guardian. The contrast is striking. In 2020, Portland witnessed weeks of unrest, with thousands filling the streets and clashes that shut down parts of the city. In 2025, however, the gatherings have been small, mostly peaceful, and contained, raising questions about whether the president is relying on outdated or misleading information. Sources: The Guardian. Portland Mayor Keith Wilson responded swiftly. He said, quote, "Like other mayors across the country, I have not asked for, and do not need, federal intervention." Wilson praised local police for balancing public safety with the right to protest, and he made clear that the city is not requesting outside troops. Sources: OPB, The Guardian. Oregon's Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, issued a sharper warning. He said that any attempt to deploy federal troops without state authorization would face immediate legal challenge. Rayfield emphasized that Oregon is prepared to defend its autonomy in court, framing the issue as a matter of both state rights and constitutional boundaries. Sources: The Guardian, OPB. Portland today is not the Portland of 2020, but the president's remarks, fueled by a misleading broadcast, have turned a minor protest into a flashpoint for a much larger debate: the balance of power between local leaders and federal authority. As legal teams prepare for a possible confrontation, Portland remains calm, for now. But the Oval Office statements have injected tension into a city still healing from its past. That was our special report from Washington and Portland. President Trump's comments about deploying the National Guard come in the same week he unveiled two other controversial moves: a proposal to rename the Department of Defense and plans to relocate the 2026 G20 summit to his own resort in Miami. Together, these developments are fueling intense debates over executive power, ethics, and the future of American democracy. Stay with Prime Pulse News USA for continuing coverage. You're watching Prime Pulse News USA. Stay with us and don't forget to subscribe, because your source for what's trending, what's changing, and what's next in America.